Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Welcome to another episode of Bench Opinions, and today, as you can see by Klaus's excitement, we are speaking about football.
New week.
It's a new week.
We're back.
And quite a lot happening over the last week or so. I think with on the pitch, off the pitch, and a lot to get through. But I think we'll start with the first thing. How you feeling after the loss on the weekend, Maxi?
That was tough. It was very tough, and I think if you saw our Instagram story and you saw the post we had on TikTok, I watched the Newcastle game, the Carabao Cup final, and we obviously got beaten quite well. And while I was in the tram on the way to the concert, I was like, oh shit, I think Sam Fender's from Newcastle.
Yes, he very much is.
He is. And the whole band had their fucking t-shirts on, and
the crowd kept on saying, "Toon, toon, Black White Army."
Yeah, there was like a third of the crowd were also from Newcastle. It was a shit show. It was rubbing it in the face, and I'm glad I had the edible, because then I just fucking spaced out and enjoyed the show. But
funny thing is that one of the friends that we went with, he had his Liverpool jersey on. And
there was another dude in the crowd there as well. Eh?
Oh, did he?
He had a proper like red.
But people took the mickey, eh?
Yeah.
Every time, ooh, tough to be him, eh? And I was like, yeah, it is. He was just about 3 feet tall. But anyway, talk us through the game, though.
It was, I think Jamie Carragher said it was probably the worst final performance by a Liverpool team in living memory.
Wow.
It was shocking.
What happened?
There was no game plan, and it wasn't like against PSG where the other team was just so visibly better. It was just that our guys just didn't know what to do, and then they resorted to hoofing long balls down the line. And there's a defender for Newcastle, Sam Byrne, who's I think 2 meters tall.
Yeah, he's gigantic.
Yeah. So now you're hoofing long balls to the guy, and there's like a 175-meter Diogo Jota trying to win headers. It's not going to work. And this is also a guy who they, during corners, assigned McAllister to mark.
Nice.
Yeah. And he literally went up until his breast, like till his chest, and scored the opening goal off a free header, essentially. It was a shit show. It all comes back to the fact, this is where you, listen up. This is now where you get masterful opinions.
Watch the space.
Yeah.
Arne Slot has done very well. No point denying that. The only thing that he hasn't done, and I've been mentioning it for a while, is he has not rotated his squad. Now, he might be worried that the others aren't good enough, but there are players in there that he occasionally gives a chance to that you could make the argument are good enough. Someone like Curtis Jones.
Yeah.
The midfield three of Gravenberg, Szoboszlai, and McAllister has played, the three of them must have played about 85, if not 90% of the season.
Yeah.
They are finished. They couldn't get on the ball.
Yeah.
Against Newcastle. Why not play someone like Curtis Jones from the start? Bring a little bit of energy in. Why not play someone like Harvey Elliott, who's still good enough?
Yeah. I totally understand that. But I think for me, I don't see it so much the final where you bring these guys in. I think it's about game management early on in the season. I think one thing that's maybe mitigating to Slot is that there have been a lot of games where you've either had to come back or you've gone on to win the games very late, which maybe because you're chasing the game or because you're trying to win the games means he's trying to keep his best 11 out there. So maybe that hasn't been ideal. But I totally get that. I think at the end of the day, and we spoke about it privately, is that I just said, sports science also doesn't lie.
Yeah.
There's the debate around the amount of matches being played, the amount of minutes in players' legs is so evident in football. You're lucky that it hasn't sort of translated into a crazy amount of injuries, but it's definitely eating into performance. So it is something that I think maybe one has to look at. But I will say at the same time, and we'll get to the Premier League now and the league race and what the mood is around the club, because I think there's been a little bit of a shift, but I don't want to put words in your mouth and the Liverpool fans' mouths. But the one thing that I will say is I think the beauty behind Slot actually possibly pulling off the Premier League win is that he buys himself and he buys the fan base and he buys the club so much time. He buys himself another 2-3 years probably of being able to go, okay, cool.
Yeah.
He's the right guy. He can win titles and allows him to then kind of make the changes that he needs to build the squad that he wants.
And I mean, you've got to be fair to him and say up until Tuesday last week, we were still in 3 competitions.
Yeah.
And now we're out of 2 of them. But we still have the league title, which if you'd asked any Liverpool fan before the season, which of the titles they'd want to win, all of them would say the league title, or all of them who are sane would say the league title. And the fact we're still in it, and the fact that we're 12 points ahead is the only reason I'm not panicking.
Yeah.
Because there are signs of crumbling. Like, the weird thing to me is, now I've heard people, like, I think it's Carrick again, who said that he's worried about the lack of pace in Liverpool's attack. But 2 weeks ago, everyone was still like, there's so many goals in Liverpool's squad.
Yeah.
They don't have to rely on only one player. But the team is still good. It's still a good team. They've gone through 2 tough results. The international break is coming at exactly the right time. Just gives people like just a moment to breathe. And then we come back against Everton.
I think the nature, but that's the nature of these, why clubs sort of tend to go into free fall. And I think controlling the narrative around teams is so important and so vital. And you see how teams tend to struggle. Once they lose 1 or 2, those games tend to kind of come at you thick and fast. This is the crazy thing, though. Your guys are dead on their legs, but because of their good performances, a lot of them are going off to play for their national teams.
That's true.
So it's interesting to see how that's managed. I don't even know.
International football is not as intense, taxing as these football games are, and like, I think the World Cup qualifiers are starting now, and in the beginning part of that, you always got some nothing fixtures. The only problem is that you've got risk of injury.
Yeah.
Now that Liverpool has essentially got one hand on the Premier League title, do you think they're kind of like losing interest in, like, they don't have that fight in them anymore because they've kind of like, we can kind of freewheel it from now on?
I would hope not. I mean, in classic sportsman vernacular, they always say, no, next game is the most important. We're not thinking about the league title. It's all about winning the next game. And I hope that's true, because if we lose to Everton at the beginning of April, that media pressure is going to become intense, because Arsenal just beat Chelsea 1-0. It's a terrible game, but they won again. And it's like Tom said, that that outward pressure that comes in from a few losses can sometimes completely undo any confidence that was in the team, because it's all built on like a house of cards. And if you just take a few out of the bottom, if you don't get 1 or 2 results quickly, that snowballs.
And you can't help but look at Slot and his career so far and where he's come from and everything, and realize that it's his first season in Premier League football. He might not box as clever as possibly someone else coming in. So I think it's like anything. The closer you look at it under the magnifying glass, the more possible issues you might find. And I think that's kind of what the pundits are going through now at the moment, is they're all of a sudden seeing problems that they didn't see 3-4 weeks ago. Look, I think would I put money on Liverpool not winning the title? No matter how good the odds are from here on out. But the next couple games are vital. I think they need to get a win in the next next 2, and I think they'll put a lot of that to bed. I found an interesting thing as well. Some of the guys saying, "Hey, everyone talks about Arsenal, but no one's talking about Forest in trying to chase you down," which is quite funny.
Far off.
They're far off. The one thing they don't have is the outside pressure, because no one cares. But I think Arsenal have to go on an immaculate run.
I think that's the only thing that makes that calms me even more, is the fact that the chasing pack isn't as dangerous. If it was City behind us in top form, I'd be worried. But Arsenal are not going to win every game from now until the end of the season. They're not.
No.
Because they've proven that they can't. I don't think Forest are going to win all the games, and I think their gap is quite large. I think that's 15 points or something like that. So I think title race, still quite calm, disappointing. Quickly to touch on Liverpool's Champions League exit, PSG are really good. And I was saying this to the guy I was watching with yesterday. I'm so torn, because I love the way they play, and now that they don't have superstars, or now that they're not superstar laden anymore, they've actually become like quite a nice team to watch, and that sort of that ego is gone. But they're still.
I would love it though if they win it the first year Mbappe moves to Madrid. Yeah, because I think there's so much about the whole Mbappe saga and the way he behaved in Paris and then moving to Real Madrid that is a sort of a poster child for why people don't like the modern footballer and the modern way football works.
Yeah.
So it would be quite ironic.
I didn't know that stuff about Luis Enrique's daughter.
Yeah.
He lost his 9-year-old daughter to cancer.
It was leukemia or cancer.
Leukemia?
Yeah.
And he actually gave quite like that interview resurfaced after they beat Liverpool and went through now of him. He's got like a really beautiful attitude towards her, the life that she had.
Yeah.
That he talks about in an interview, I think in 2019 and stuff. So seeing that side of him also like makes you a little bit more like he deserves it. Because he's come to Paris and he said, listen, I don't need any of these superstars. I'm going to play my brand of football. And the team as he got now is lit. They are on fire. And I think if they come up against Real Madrid in that semi-final, Real Madrid are going to have their hands full because these Oaks are insane.
And as you said it, there are a lot of young guys that were sort of brought in from clubs that you wouldn't really have had them on your radar. You know, Desiree Doué came from Montpellier. He's an unbelievable sort of attacking midfielder. And then you've got Barcola, who they brought in from Lyon. And he was sort of on people's radars, but the way he's kind of grown into that side is unreal. He's gotten the best out of Dembele, who's been a problematic player his entire career.
He's on fire. He's so dangerous.
And then a couple of midfielders as well. I mean, Vitinho apparently is been tearing it up. So
what's that Georgian? I mentioned him in the last one as well.
Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah. He's also so good.
Exactly.
But yeah. Enough about them. Now I've lost my train of thought.
Probably you wanted to move on to United or not?
No, there was something else I wanted to talk about, but now we can't
There
because
you
it's
go.
gone.
There you go. I will move us on to United, and maybe we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
I will move us on to United, and some big news coming from the club. First of all, results starting to look up. Very good. Good convincing win against Real Sociedad, and then a good performance yesterday against Leicester. So results are starting to come through using a lot of the younger players, and slowly you start to feel like the bad apples have slowly but surely started to be weeded out in terms of performance, but also in terms of the squad. So,
but when you say weeded out, are they still there, or do we now just know who they are?
No, we know who they are, and also
who are they?
Opposite
name
to
and shame them.
Opposite to what Ten Hag did is there was not persistent to just try and make it work. Amorim, for example, Casemiro, he had a great performance against Arsenal for us to get the 1-0 result against them. But generally speaking, he's not good enough, and he is second in line to a couple of the other players.
Okay.
Then you've also got Aiden Heaven, who's come in now from Arsenal. We got him in for £1 million, 18-year-old. He's just so clearly ahead of someone like Lindelof. The only reason Lindelof is playing is because we've got so many injuries. So you're starting to see people, based on performances, getting ahead of all these guys that some of the coaches previously persisted with, and they're out the door. I mean, Lindelof and Eriksen are anyway out the door. Their contracts are up, and I think Casemiro will be also moved on. Nonetheless, good movements, good change, good, how do you say it? Good tendencies, good signs for the club. So
I'm
that's
still
good.
waiting for you to name all those bad apples.
Rashford is not there anymore. Sancho is gone. Casemiro is a bad apple.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say that's the worst of it.
Okay.
That bad apples in terms of squad and mentality. Someone like Dalot is not good enough, and he gets talked up. Although he had a good performance yesterday, but against Leicester.
That's my little hope still as a Liverpool fan, is that some of these players will put in some performances now come the end of the season, and then you'll keep them even though they're actually trash.
I think previous years that totally could be the case, but I do think that is the difference with Amorim. I think we'll have to see what finances allow. But,
yes, let's talk about your finances.
Okay, the next big thing happening is the new stadium being announced. So,
can we talk about the new stadium in relation to Sir Jim Radcliffe's interview coming out?
Let me first talk people through the quick like lowdown of as to what the stadium's rumored to be or has been presented as. So, 100,000 seat stadium built right next door to where Old Trafford now is, on land that is owned by the club. Old Trafford, they predict that it will take 5 years to build. They're using a modular modern technique to do so. So it's
They can get the people who built the Berlin airport in there.
No, that's fine.
Premium experience,
super fast.
Or the train station in Stuttgart.
They can build Tottenham's new trophy cabinet.
Any construction site in Germany, actually.
And so it will be built over a 5-year period using modular technology, etc. And will be covered with a massive glass structure. It looks like a little bit like a tent. 3 tridents that represent
a circus tent.
A circus tent, yeah. 3 tridents that or towers that represent the tridents in the devil's trident in the badge, and apparently, look, for all intents and purposes, a monstrosity is what I saw it as in the first, but also just so much of a, I don't know, a symbol, or like a, it's going to be so symbolic, it's going to be so recognizable, it's going to be so out there. Essentially, that's the only way I can describe it.
I think let's be fair and let's call it what it is. It's going to be the nicest stadium in the championship. It's the second division. No, it looks nice. It looks a little bit like a circus tent, but renderings are also always, they look nice. You know, they've got the clear skies there. That never happens. You know, wish you all the best.
Although the tent is designed for rain collection, so they have thought about all the rainy days in March.
Okay.
I mean, in Manchester and March and every
Ironically,
other month.
that's what Old Trafford is now, also a bowl for rain collection, because that thing's got a lot of leaks.
That's true. So, getting back to the serious talk about the stadium, a lot of positives. Finances, $2 billion, £2 billion project, 500 million. Sorry, geez, my numbers sound like Jacob Zuma. 500 million will be directly funded by the government, but that's all got to do with infrastructure around the stadium to facilitate the area around it, and the rest of the financing has not yet been confirmed. So we will see. Probably more debt.
I think that's a good, segue to the interview with Sir Jim Radcliffe, who is minority shareholder with Ineos in Manchester United, that came out, I think, a day before the stadium plans were published. Yeah. And it was an interview with Gary Neville in which Gary sort of tried to let people have more of an insight into some of the decisions that have been made at United since Ineos came in. You guys hired that sporting director?
Dan Ashworth.
Dan Ashworth, fired him 6 weeks later, something like that. Very short while later. So it cost a lot of money to get him on board. Fired him later. Gave Ten Hag a new contract. Fired him. That was also expensive. And then some of the, I think, more headline-grabbing stuff is the Ex-Players Association that you guys have taken money from, or that you guys weren't funding anymore.
Yeah.
And then another thing was that they don't provide meals for club staff anymore. And he sort of, that was the headline-grabbing stuff that Gary sort of tried to nail him down on. And I think he actually came off quite well in that interview.
I agree, yeah.
The Glazers came off terribly, because it just shows you how financially that club has been literally milked dry, to him actually saying that by November this year they would have run out of cash if they didn't change things.
Exactly. But
it does sort of throw into question the two announcements so close to one another. I think if you look at it from an outside perspective, and maybe if you've got a better understanding of finance, you're probably saying one doesn't have anything to do with the other, right? So funding a new stadium, the 1.5 billion they'll need for that, is something completely different to the 40,000 that they need a year to fund that Ex-Players Association or whatever. But I think I found it very strange to announce the two in such close proximity.
So so there's a couple of things, and I agree 100%. I think the main headline for me here is, you damned if you do and you damned if you don't. I think they had to announce all the staff layoffs because of the end of the financial year.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could have kept that a secret, laying off 200 people or 270 people. Yeah. So that's the first issue. So how do you keep it a secret? And the second thing is that the whole stadium build and the whole regeneration project around Old Trafford, which is now going to be called New Trafford, apparently, all of that.
Terrible name.
Apparently,
maybe Allianz wants to sponsor it.
Yeah, Allianz can keep sponsoring
a
lower level rugby team. Anyway, and I think the reality is, I don't know, I've lost my train of thought now. I hear Allianz Stadium and I just think of the English rugby, and it sends me right off my rocker.
You said you were damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
And I think the second thing is that the regeneration project was part of they'd involved a larger task force that had been tasked with developing this concept, also with the idea that it gets launched within the beginning of financial year, so that the planning can be done. So I think I don't know if there's any way to do it. I think firing 200 and something people is bad. There's no way of sugarcoating it.
But is it bad if the club was inflated before? Because
No. That's what I'm saying. But I think I don't disagree with firing people. We were talking. No, but I don't. I do not.
I see us getting attacked on Instagram.
Well, I don't. Here, you're the one who said when the tram drivers were striking that they should just go find another job. So
yeah,
if they want more money, yeah.
Do you think they? Never mind. What I'm saying is, I think if we're only talking about the announcement, because you spoke about the timing of the announcements, I think there is no way around it as far as I'm concerned.
Why is there no way? Can't they announce one like 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later? To literally announce or to literally have those two things within one day of one another.
To me, I don't understand what difference that makes. 200 plus people are losing their jobs and a whole bunch of money is going to a new stadium. Whether it's 2 or 3 weeks apart, I don't see. I think you could argue that you should rip the Band-Aid off, get it over and done with, and move. And you could argue that from a PR perspective, the only way to get maybe people to forget about the 200 people losing their jobs is arguably one of the most iconic stadiums that are now planned to be built.
So can I ask a different thing? Is it essential that you guys get back into the Champions League next year because of the money that generates? Because not just the new stadium, but your club's finances seem to be like in the shitter. And the money that you need to get back on...
Well, there's so many things that... like if you listen to that Radcliffe interview, we're talking about... I mean, he mentions a body language coach that they had been paying... as a consultant for £175,000 a year. And it just seemed that contract just was on a rolling...
We also need to give props to that body language consultant that he scored that contract because...
Yeah.
That oak must have been like...
He probably read the body language in the boardroom and was able to negotiate a good deal.
Exactly. But, those are perfect examples. United...
Yeah.
What I read was the only club in the whole of English football that was offering free lunch to all its staff.
Yeah.
Then
the free lunches. I'm not. There's not many businesses out there that offer free lunches to their employees.
No. We also were the biggest employer within football in the whole of the world.
Yeah.
So that shows that you were bloated and inflated. And I think.
And your head offices were in London or something.
Well,
like
we had an office in London that was way too big that we've now gotten out of the lease.
Yeah.
You add to that stuff like terrible transfer business, which is something that he speaks about openly. He also very openly criticized the previous regime under Arnold and Ed Woodward as well, saying it's just stupid business. So I think you have to, while a lot of the things don't have a lot to do with each other, as you pointed out rightly, I think to say that United's finances are in tatters is true, but to say that they're going to remain in tatters is based off the previous way the club was run. So
I don't think they'll remain in tatters, but if you want to, if the situation is as bad as he says, and you say that bad apples need to go out, players need to be sold, and you need to sign new players, then you need money.
We do need money.
But where's that money coming from?
I think we're going to sell someone like Marcus Rashford for 40 million to Aston Villa, and that gets his salary off our books. And I just don't think we're going to sign someone on Marcus Rashford's salary to replace him.
Okay.
And I think that's the key. And I think the key is here, and this is what frustrates me about the United fan base, is that there's been over years there's been such a lack of patience that has led to, I think, sometimes even outside influence to the club, someone like Ed Woodward or Richard Arnold who have no understanding of football to go, we need to make a marquee signing and we're going to spend whatever money we need to do that. And I think the shift is there. And I think that's why, to a certain degree, I think it's ingenious, or it's at least hopefully like a secondary positive impact on the fan base with this new stadium, is that it's 5 years away.
Yeah.
And there's this element of maybe that being the carrot dangled, that in 5 years possibly United is back competing on the pitch within this new stadium. And
that's a good way of looking
but
at it.
At the end of the day, a lot of things have to fall into place. And I think so Jim Radcliffe said a lot of the right things. I don't think he said very much that could be interpreted as trying to be deceptive or trying to put wool over anyone's eyes, which is also fantastic.
You don't get many owners who front up to the media and to the fans like that, because you never hear from the owners at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I think all in all,
there is talk, for example, though, just to come back, there's talk now already, and again, people are going to get upset, particularly traditionalists are going to be upset about it, of Amazon already trying to get the naming rights to the stadium.
Okay.
And the naming rights alone, they're willing to pay 75 million a year. So that's 750 million of income that's coming into, and that's pure profit because it's the naming rights on the stadium. So those are the kind of things, and I think it is one of those things. It takes money to make money, which sounds ludicrous considering we have over $1 billion pounds of debt. But I think that's kind of where the thinking's at, and operationally, it is about becoming more streamlined. It's crazy, but it's looking at someone like Brighton and going, how have they done it? How do they continuously improve players? Because players are assets. How do you make your assets worth more money as opposed to signing people at the peak of their value and letting them sort of see out the end of their deals on £350,000 a week? And it's going to take patience and time, but there's this carrot that's now been dangled, and hopefully Champions League football. And I think Champions League football is essential. Do I think it's the straw that breaks the camel's back at this stage? No. But I think
otherwise that camel's back would be broken.
There you go. Well, we could win the Europa League.
You could. Some good teams left in the Europa League. I think I'm going to put my name in the hat now. I think Frankfurt are going to win it.
Okay, good. Your boys Spurs still in that class as well?
Yeah.
How are we feeling?
Feeling
Up
easy.
the hot Spurs.
Feeling quite easy about it.
Right.
One last little tidbit about football, and that is we had the Old Firm derby this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Rangers Celtic.
Yeah.
I watched extended highlights because I was a little bit
Shocked.
No, I was a little bit tipsy last night after the concert.
No.
Or actually not even tipsy. I was like a bit still buzzing from the concert, and I was like, let me just still. What a game.
Yeah. I thought it was a very surprising result.
Yeah, it is quite surprising. I think the reason people aren't as shocked is because it's got no influence on the title race. Celtic are still, I think, 9 points or 12 points ahead. But crazy to see the first time away fans were let into the stadium since 2020.
Wow.
So there was 2,500 Rangers fans in the stadium. They say that that's still the craziest derby on earth. They're like, in terms of the hatred towards one another.
There must be some in South America
that
are up there in Argentina.
Yeah, but like the deep-rooted sort of hatred and like the deep-rooted, completely philosophical, socio-economical divide between these sets of fans is pretty wild.
I'd like to ask a question about football in general.
You have to put the ball in. There's 2 goals.
Right.
No, kidding, sorry.
And then you just kick it, right? You can't tap it through your hand.
But you can pass it forward.
Cool, that's what I wanted to know.
Should we wrap it up
No,
then?
I've actually got another question. Week in, week out, you guys often have these conversations about like the economy of football, moving players back and forth, building stadiums, this club in debt, that club in debt, these guys making political moves left, right, and center. And on top of that, considering the fact that a coach or head coach is considered a manager, is football the most political game in the world? Because I can't think of another sport where one talks about everything besides the sport as much as with football.
Well, I mean, it's the sport that has the most money involved, and as soon as something has that much money involved, then there's a lot more business behind it than there is sport. So
and I also think it's the oldest commercialized sport and professional sport as we know it. I would say, like on this level where people have been full-time professionals. So I think because of that, the structures around the game and around clubs, and with them being so active in the financial markets, are just so much more present and so much more set in stone. And I think that's why it is. You know, I'd say American sports is relatively close. I don't think politically.
I think on a
terms of like a commercialized everything in and around the game.
I think the ownership in the NFL is discussed constantly. Who your owners are, what moves they're making, what players they're signing. So I think it's literally has to do with the money involved. If the money in the back end is big enough, then the business on the front end is going to be huge, and the discussions are going to revolve a lot around what decisions are going to be made.
And I think in places like the UK, particularly England, and in the Premier League, the club that you sort of align yourself with is so representative of your social economic background. Football clubs often are used as a way to uplift communities that are otherwise struggling. So I think all of those things play a role. And that's, if you look at, for example, Wrexham, that's what they say is so remarkable about it, because this football club has essentially breathed life back into a community that had nothing
left. And I mean, if you've been to small towns in Scotland, England, Wales, where dreams go to die, because there's nothing left there. All the young people are leaving. Businesses are dying out. So for football clubs to be successful, really, like Dom says, breathes lives back into communities.
Yeah.
Shall we wrap it up?
Sure.
On this week's football episode?
Stupid international break coming up. So I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Maybe some international results. Could be interesting.
Maybe. We'll see. Otherwise, maybe we'll have a kickabout in front of the camera.
Yeah, I'll show you guys how to do a bicycle kick.
Keep you uppies.
Can't wait for that. Thank you very much.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Bye.